A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So we'll be doing the tafsir for ruku number 2 of Juzz number 2, verses 148 through 152. As always, we need to start with the dua from asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'a wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinaba. Oh Allah, show us the truth as truth and give us the ability to follow it, and show us the falsehood as falsehood and give us the ability to avoid it. So we are continuing the verses here, starting with verse number 148. So this is the conversation that was happening, from the previous verses. The conversation that is happening is about the change of Qibla, right? Now, what happens is that the style of the Quran is that it talks about an issue, but then sometimes make a general statement, right, to get the point across. Now, the word kulli in this means everyone, which means this is for everybody, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a Muslim, non-Muslim, this applies to everybody. Now, wajh means face, but wij means a specific direction, right? So when it says wijhatun, basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that everyone picks a goal in their life, right? We have obviously, the ayahs were talking about, changing the direction, which was from where to where? Where did the direction change from?
Jerusalem to Mecca.
Change from Jerusalem to Mecca, right? The direction where the Muslims used to pray before the ayahs came, they used to pray towards Jerusalem. But when the ayahs came, they changed their direction towards Mecca, and the Muslims were where at that time? They were in Medina, right? So the direction was 180-degree opposite of where they used to point at. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically saying that obviously he's talking about the direction, and that's what we talked about in the last verses that we did. But now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying everyone has a goal and everyone picks a direction in life. Now this means every goal, which means that each one of you may not have written it down, but you have a goal. Some of you may have a goal to become the best of gamers, right? You play video games quite a lot, and maybe that's what you want to become good at, right? Some of you may have a goal to become a good sportsman. Some of you may have a goal to become, a good engineer. Who knows, right? There is a goal that everybody has, whether you have it written down or not. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in this is that you do not only turn towards that goal yourself, but you are also causing others around you to work towards that goal, which means person who likes to play games, he likes to hang around people who likes to play games because that's his goal and it matches with what the other people are doing as well. Or he is causing people around him to play games all the time too, right? Which means if you have an incorrect goal in your life, you are not only getting distracted yourself, but you are causing a distraction for the others around you. Now, one thing that we need to remember is that any good deed that you do and others follow you, you get the reward for that. But any bad deed that you do and others follow you, you get the reward for that too, right? It's not a fail, it's the opposite, but you still get the reward, right? Who was the person responsible, or who were the two people involved in the act of killing in the history of mankind? Habil and Qabil. That was the first murder that happened in the history of mankind, right? And since then, every murder that has happened, it is attributed because somebody did it the very first time in the history of mankind. Similarly, if you guide somebody towards good, you get the benefit for that. If you guide somebody towards bad, you still get the benefit of it. It's not a good benefit though, right? So we need to keep this in mind. Now, question for each one of us is, what is the legacy that you will leave behind? Because all of us are going to die. We don't know how long it's going to take. There is no guarantee that you will live up to 90 years old. Nobody has a guarantee. Not me, not you, nobody, right? Any of us could be gone next week or next month or next year or in the next 5 years, who knows? You only have the time you have. How much time you have is what you don't know. Question is, of the time that you do have, what are you doing with it? Are you using it for benefit, or are you just wasting it away? That's a question that each one of us has to ask. What is your direction? What is your goal in life? Verse number 148 continues, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Fastabiqul khairat," right? So hasten towards all that is good. What does this mean? Is that you can only race towards a goal when you have a goal. When you don't have a goal, how can you race towards anything? So the first thing that we need to have is, we need to have a goal in life, whatever that goal is, for you. That's why I said, let's start with that, listing out the goals that we want to have. You have to write things down. The moment you start writing things down, right, this somehow start becoming reality, but it has to be written down. You cannot be just thinking about it. The other thing is that this is talking about all good deeds. Now, specifically, the ayahs, the Kaaba is important because of two pillars of Islam. What are the two pillars of Islam that involve the Kaaba? Hajj is one, and Salah is the other one, right? Because we have to pray in the direction of the Kaaba. So Kaaba is important because of at least the two pillars in Islam, because Kaaba is involved with that, right? Similarly, what needs to be happening is that Salah and Hajj are obviously the focus, but this ayah is not just restricted. The ayah about doing good is not just restricted to about Salah and Hajj. This refers to everything in our life. So remember, everybody has a goal, and when you have a goal and you're moving towards it, you're helping other people as well, right? That's why we say that you need to stay with like-minded people, or sometimes it's said, show me your friends, I'll tell you who you are. Because the people you hang around with is the kind of people you will become, right? Either you become like them, or you cause them to become like you, but that's quite rare, because you're only hanging around with the people that you hang around with because you have something in common, right? But question is, the people you're hanging around with, do they have the things that you should be working towards? That's a question that you need to ask and answer for your own self, right? Making sure that you're choosing a goal and you're sticking to it, right? That's the target that we need to have. Verse number 148 then continues and says, "Aynama takunu ya'ti bikumullahu jami'a." Wheresoever you may be, Allah will bring you together. Inna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. Truly, Allah is able to do all things. Remember, doesn't matter where you live in this world, doesn't matter where you die, you will be brought in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment with your book, either in your right hand or in your left hand. But there will be a book. Your life, anything that you do in public or private, is going to be played in front of you at that time. All of us know what sins we've done, right? We may not, some obviously sins you don't want to talk about, you don't have to talk about, because that's something between you and Allah. Allah knows what you've done. You don't have to make it public. But ask for forgiveness of Allah, of the things you've done that you are not happy about so far. The day could be today when you start that. You don't have to wait for, be 90 years old, just like it used to be in the cases that, grandfathers, they sit down, can't do much, so all they do is, ask for forgiveness. Don't make it like that. The prayers that you do when you're young are the ones that get rewarded more, because this is the time when you have the ability to do whatever you want to do. You can choose to do good or choose to do bad, right? But this is the time where you have to choose the direction for yourself. So verse number 149 then says, وَمِنْ حَيْثُ خَرَجْتَ فَوَلِّ وَجْهَكَ شَطْرَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. And from wheresoever you start forth for prayers, turn your face in the direction of Masjid al-Haram. Why this ayah came? Because the ayahs about change in direction came when Muslims were in Medina. There were some Sahaba who asked, what about if we go outside of Medina? Do we still need to face the Kaaba, or do we need to face Jerusalem, or what do we need to do? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent these ayahs. This obviously also refers to people, because remember, when these ayahs came in Medina, people in Makkah, the Muslims in Makkah, they were a very small group, right? You could single those out, you could single those Muslims out at the time. But people in Medina, they were they were a bigger group. They were not a small group. Plus, they were also living with Jews and Christians who used to pray towards Jerusalem. So this ayah also came to encourage people that even when they are traveling with people that they know of, because obviously they were friends with Christians and Jews at the time, if they're traveling with them or if they're praying in solitude, they should still be facing Masjid al-Haram. They should not be saying or should not be getting impacted by other non-Muslims who used to say, oh, why are you changing the direction? Is your Islam even stable? You guys used to pray in one direction, yesterday, now you're praying in a different direction tomorrow or today, and you're going to maybe change the direction tomorrow, who knows? So there were many Muslims who had weak iman, who heard these things from non-Muslims and started doubting things. So these ayahs were revealed to help those Muslims understand that Allah is not unaware of whatever happens, right? Now what happens is that when all these Muslims were living with the Christians and the Jews, they were all part of the same family. This is why it was important to understand and make them realize this. I talked about this golden ratio point, right? I don't know how many of you have seen the video. If not, you can Google it up on YouTube and and talk about it, but or see it. But this is an interesting video for the ones of you for those of you who have not seen this. So verse number 150.
So the Jews, why did they pray to Jerusalem? Why did they pray to Jerusalem?
Because at one point in time, this was at the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam, right? When they built the masjid over there, Masjid Aqsa was built at that time. And over time, they changed the direction, right? That is where they started facing towards. Sulaiman alayhi salam was given obviously importance. That's where they changed the Kaaba. Jews over time, they did that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to show them is that Allah can do whatever He wants to do. If you are praying in one direction, and Jews used to think that this is the only direction that you should be praying in because this is what their belief was over time. When you start doing things, people will start doing things because they see their forefathers do something. They just like today, right? Right now, you're Muslims because your parents are Muslims. You may not know why you're Muslim. I don't know how many of you have even asked the question. In today's days and age, people are asking this question now, which is actually a good thing. That you are starting to think about, why am I doing this? Because Islam encourages asking these questions. Islam does not say, don't ask me why you're Muslim, just do it. This is not what Islam is about. Islam wants you to ask the questions, and the responsibility lies on the people who are answering the question. And that's why when you ask a question, don't go to your friends. Go to somebody who's more knowledgeable, like the Imam of a masjid, your parents, right? Somebody that you think has knowledge of Islam, not your friends. Trust me, Google is not going to help them, okay? The questions need to go to people who can answer the questions for you, not misguide you, okay? All right, so verse number 150, وَمِنْ حَيْثُ خَرَجْتَ فَوَلِّ وَجْهَكَ شَطْرَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. Again, the verse is getting repeated. The words are getting repeated. Now, when the instruction gets repeated, it means people are not paying heed to it. People are not listening it the first time. And Allah knows it, that they're not listening it. And Allah is giving them this encouragement that wherever you go, change your direction. It's important. This is what you have to do. And this is how the Muslim nation was getting separated from the rest of the nations, the Jews and the Christians. That their Kaaba, their direction was completely opposite. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also saying, لِأَلَّا يَكُونَ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَيْكُمْ حُجَّةٌ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْهُمْ. Turn your faces toward it in order that the people will not have any argument against you, except for those who commit wrong. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying the only people who will have any kind of an argument or who will tell you otherwise are the people who are the wrongdoers themselves. Allah has already called them out before. And Allah is saying that those are the people who would be the wrongdoers. So, verse number 150 continues and says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَخْشَوْنِي. So fear them not, but fear me. Who's the me? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Now, this is obviously a universal statement, right? That fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that do not be afraid of what the people say. And this applies to each and every one of you also. Today, if you have a friend, might be a Muslim, right, who comes up to you, let's say you, and many of you are in high school, some of you are probably in middle school or high, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Your friends may come to you and say, oh, it's prayer time. It's time you can either play another game or video game or play soccer. Let's delay the prayer. We'll pray it. There is still time. Question is, do you listen to them or do you listen to your own heart that might be telling you that you need to pray your prayer on time? Everything else can wait. But that's a question that each one of us has to answer for our own self. Is that what are we listening to? Now, also remember that at the time, there were people, and even today, there are people who believe that Muslims have made a combination of Judaism and Christianity. What does that mean? Is that some people think that it's just a cult, that Muslims took something out of the Jews and took something out of the Christians, put that together, and that's how Islam came about. And some people believe that. Question is that, and they also believe that there is stuff that is in the Quran is copied from Bible, right? But on the other side, there are people who say burn the Quran, right? It's confusing for many people, and people have a right to their own opinions. What we need to be mindful of is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to follow the instructions that He is giving, not fear the people or what the people are telling you. Now, Allah is also saying that He is going to expose the people who are changing the truth. Right? He can show the people who hide the truth. So fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The verse number 150 continues, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَلِأُتِمَّ نِعْمَتِي عَلَيْكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَهْتَدُونَ, and so that I may complete my blessing on you and that you may be guided. What's the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to complete? Allah is giving a hint. These ayahs were given before the conquest of Makkah. So Allah is giving a hint here is that I am going to complete my blessing upon you by giving you the Kaaba, right? You will be able to conquer it one day. Now, how the blessing is going to get completed? Allah is also giving the hint that it will have to be cleansed. It will have to be cleansed. It will have to be cleansed of all the idols, right? The Kaaba had how many idols at the time?
500.
About 360, right? And all the idols were broken when the conquer of Makkah happened. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving that hint that the Kaaba has to be cleansed because those idols cannot stay if you are praying towards the Kaaba, right? Those have to go. So the Muslims, today we are worshipping towards the Kaaba because there was a dua that Ibrahim alayhi salam had made, right, when he was building the Kaaba. What was the dua that he had made? The dua that he had made was that may a prophet be raised amongst those people who is going to recite to them the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is going to give them guidance, the wisdom. So this today, the reality that we are praying towards the Kaaba is actually a manifestation of the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam. That he made that dua and he did not know when his dua was going to get accepted, but he still made the dua. So the lesson in this is make dua for whatever you want, because dua is always accepted, right? You will always get something in return for a dua, either now or later or on the day of judgment, but you will get it. But you have to ask for it first. Verse number 151, if you see, actually is pretty similar to the dua that Ibrahim alayhi salam made, which is also in the Quran. What happens here is that the word kama, which is the first word in this verse, basically means similarly, just is how sort of we translate that. And typically this is when you are comparing two situations. When you say similar to this, that happened, or similar to that, this happened. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing that comparison as part of these, in this verse. And what is happening is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the final messenger, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is being sent again as part of the acceptance of the dua that Ibrahim alayhi salam made thousands of years ago. Now, what is happening is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring in this verse, He's using the word kum. Kum is basically a second person when you're using a second person, right? He's saying you, all of you, which means each and every one of you. When Ibrahim alayhi salam made the dua, he made the dua in third person because he did not know who the people are going to be. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying it's in each and every one of you, right? Reciting to you our verses. Allah is talking to each and every one of you. Now remember that the purification, when we talk about purification, because what is purification? Purification is that when we are talking about وَيُزَكِّيكُمْ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam purified people. But purification has two things. One is purification of heart, and the other one is purification of mind. What does it mean? Purifying your character, purifying your gaze, your chastity, purifying what you're thinking, what you're doing. Everything counts, right? Today, we talked about it the other day, today when you go to high school, right? You have girls around you wearing short clothes, right? Does it matter that they do it and you keep on looking towards them? Or do you gaze away, turn your gaze away because you remember what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, right? To lower our gaze in situations like these, right? It's a reminder to all of us. And when this happens, right, you get rewarded a lot more because at your age, doing things like these, not many kids can do it. That's the reality. But if you do it, right, your status gets raised in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because again, remember, the people who will enter Jannah would be very small in quantity. They would not be very many, okay, compared to the people who will go into Jahannam. So you want to make sure that you are of those few set of people who will be in Jannah. But it all depends on our own actions and deeds. The other thing that we need to purify ourselves from is greed and jealousy, right? Are you jealous because somebody else has something that you don't have? Somebody else may have more money that you have. Somebody else may have a bigger house that one might have, right? We need to make sure we are purifying ourselves of all of those things. Why this is important? Because the foundation is important. If your foundation is wrong, anything that you do beyond that, it's not going to work. A tree, if it does not have a strong root, it cannot stand the winds when they start blowing, right? When the situation arises, it would be very difficult for you to stand on your own 2 feet and make a right decision if your character is not built up properly, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically saying that we need to have knowledge of all these things. Question is, a heart can be clean or dirty, right? If your heart is clean, it will always be attracted to good things, clean things. But if the heart is dirty, it is always going to get attracted to dirty things, wrong things, incorrect things. Question is, how can we clean our heart? And is our heart clean? That's the question that again we need to answer for our own self, right? So again, a dirty heart and a clean heart, right? Even the pictures look so much different of a dirty heart and a clean heart. Completely opposite. And the house example is, this is a house that's messy, right? If you're sitting in a messy house, if more mess comes in, you don't really care. You're already sitting in a mess anyways, right? And I guess a question on the side is, does this look like the room that you guys have at home? Hopefully not. Hopefully not, right? But again, this is just a reminder for all of us, right? Do you get your parents to work more, or do you actually keep it clean? But again, and this is a clean house. Well, question that all of us need to answer for our own self is, which room or which condition is my room in? My room is in, my house is in. Is it the one on the right or the one on the left? Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Fazkuruni azkurkum. Therefore remember me. How do you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? By praising and glorifying Him. Washkuruli wala takfurun. I will remember you. And be grateful to me and never be ungrateful to me. A couple of things here that I wanted to point out. When somebody is doing a big favor to you, right? You might remember them because somebody else did a favor to you. Question is, will they remember you? So, a slightly different example. You may spend your time talking about, let's say, if you like some actor, a movie star, right? You may talk about the movie star. If you like sports, you may talk about a sports star. This is what he does, this is what he eats, this is what he wears, this is what his record is. You may know everything about his life. But does he care that you know about him? He doesn't. He may not even know that you exist. Right? This is the reality of the world, is that you may be spending your time trying to know about somebody, but he may not even know that you even exist. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that, remember me and I will remember you. This is your Rabb who's saying that. How many people are in this world? 7 billion, maybe 8 billion, right? How many people have gone and have come and gone? Billions of people. Outside of the creation of man, there is billions of other insects and fishes and animals that are out there. There are billions of leaves, probably just in this, in the city of Atlanta or maybe in the state of Georgia, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows each and every one of it. So for Him to remember you is a big deal. It's not a small thing. If somebody said, you can remember our president all the time, right? But if somebody says, oh, the president of America remembers you, it might be a big thing for you, but he doesn't care because he may not even know you, that you exist. But in this case, Allah is saying, you remember me and I will remember you. But Allah is also saying on the other side that be grateful to me and never be ungrateful. The question is, if Allah is saying be grateful to me, right, why is He saying never be ungrateful? Because if you are grateful, doesn't that mean that you are not ungrateful? Why He is saying that? Because what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means by that is you have to be grateful all the time. Right? And as humans, what happens is that there are many situations in our life when we are grateful at one time, but might be completely grateful at a different time because something didn't work out. If you do not get, let's say, a quick example is, if you do not get good scores on one of your SAT scores, right? If it doesn't fly well for you, are you still grateful to Allah or are you not?
Yes, sir.
That is what is going to determine how grateful or ungrateful you are, right? Similarly, what we need to remember is that when you are praying Salah, how many times you read Fatiha in a day? 17 times. As part of Fatiha, you are praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means that the only times you have to worry about now, if you are focused on your Salah, is the time outside of Salah. Are you still being grateful to Allah that He has given you the things He has given you? Are you grateful that you got up today? Did you thank Allah today that you were able to get out of your bed?
Yeah.
Hopefully everybody prayed Fajr. But the point is that are you grateful for having another day for you? Right? Another question that you need to remember is, let's say if you're watching a movie and it's time for Salah. and you're like, the movie is so intense, and you're really into it, and the scene is like, this is like the climax of the movie,
Just pause it, bro.
and it's Maghrib time. Maghrib time is not that long, right?
Just pause it.
And you pause the movie, and you do wudu, or maybe you already have wudu, or maybe you think you have wudu, and you run to pray, but you're still thinking about the movie. Or sometimes, what happens is that, you may still have the movie going, and you're looking up as you're praying right in front of the movie, right? Some people may do that too. But remember, but the point I'm trying to make is that you have the movie going, you're praying salah, but you're still thinking about the movie in your head. What's going to happen next? What's the climax? What's the end scene? And then you come back quickly and you start playing the movie again, right? Did you even concentrate in salah?
True, W.
That's something we need to think about. Are we doing that? Are we getting focused? Or are we even thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we are doing our prayers? Right? So what to do? Think in the morning,
Hard.
act, reflect, and then rest at night. Okay? So remember, you want to note down your favorite gem of the day at the end of the ruku. Okay? We will talk about sharing next time. So please remember to think about that ahead of time.
That's what you said last time.
And we do our ruku check here. So question is, do I have a focused direction in religion and in life? Do I hasten towards good deeds on my own, or do others have to push me? Or do I get pushed to do good by my parents, but I still don't want to do it? Do I worry about what others will think or what Allah will think? Do I feel blessed? Do I work on cleaning my heart of all the junk and garbage? ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. Will I accept this, inshallah?
Wait, go back.
Alright, so for the ones who are not able to finish it, guys.